How's it going, you guys? So in this video I wanted to talk a little bit about age-related decline. So what is age-related decline exactly? Age-related decline is essentially this idea that inevitably as we age, as we get older, we start to lose our health, our physical abilities, and our mental abilities as well. Essentially, our body and our brain and our abilities decline with age. So I want to discuss this because I feel like, first of all, most people, they use age-related decline as an excuse to not improve themselves. And anytime something goes wrong with their body or their health, they automatically blame it on age. That's the very first thing that I feel is very problematic. The second thing is that besides things like estrogen and testosterone, the science is extremely shaky and does not prove a causal link between age and many different forms of decline. Okay, so there are many things to talk about here, and I'm probably not going to bring every single thing up that I want to in this one video, but I'll do my best to, at the very least, make my point clear here first and foremost. So let's see, what about physical performance? Okay, so the other day I was watching a Muay Thai, which is like a form of kickboxing. A Muay Thai strength and conditioning coach, he was talking about how basically there's studies done on elite athletes that show once they hit like their 30s, they start to lose performance. They basically say in their 20s they're at their athletic peak, and then when they're in their 30s their performance goes down. And basically he was saying like absolutely that is basically a fact that after your 30s your peak has completely gone, like your prime is gone. So the problem with this idea is the same problem that goes for most other abilities that people blame degrading on age. They blame the decline in performance and health and mental abilities on age. All these other facets of age-related decline suffer from the same problems as far as the science that I'm about to explain here in a second. So essentially, the problem with this idea is that, so let's say if you don't reach your prime in your 20s, then I'm afraid it's too late for you to reach your prime anytime after your 20s. So once you hit your 30s, your prime is already gone. So here's the facts, is that if somebody starts training in their 20s and they keep up their training, especially if they're training intelligently, they'll be able to improve their skills continuously. They'll be able to improve their strength, their stamina and endurance, their skills, and their overall performance in general will get better. Their ability to do more work, more strength and conditioning, more power, and more work overall, more physical work, their ability to recover from that work as well will improve with time. Now, it doesn't matter what age you are. This is true across many different sports. I know people who have, in powerlifting, for example, everyone who doesn't do powerlifting, they're afraid of breaking their back. And then when people in their 50s and 60s, they look at a lift like the deadlift, and they look at powerlifters deadlifting like 1,000 pounds, and they think there's no way in hell I'll be able to do that at the age of 60 because I'll break my back. Now first of all, as long as you're deadlifting properly and you know how to train properly, you can deadlift large amounts of weight even at the age of 60, 70, and even at around, around 70 is probably the cutoff point for lifting massive amounts of weight. But there's powerlifters in their 90s that have actively competed, and they started late. Like, there are people who have started powerlifting, especially in their 40s. I know people who have broken world records in their 40s. And here in my own town, at the gym I had trained at, it was called Original Gym at the time, there was a guy, and he was like, I think he was 55 maybe, and he had actually broken an all-time world record in the bench press. I think he had benched, I don't remember, 500 something pounds at the time, and it was a raw bench press record. But I believe this guy's been training consistently for decades. So he has a lot of training under his belt. But the point here is you could still break world records across all age groups into your 50s, okay? There's a lot of people who give up in their 30s. As a competitive athlete and a strength and conditioning coach, I can't even begin to explain my disappointment in so many people. They're in their 30s talking about, I just can't recover from jiu-jitsu because I'm too old. So anyway, the thing is, if you have not hit your prime in your 20s, you don't know what your prime looks like, okay? Because you never hit it. So whatever your prime is, you probably have a lot of untapped potential that if you believe you can actually achieve, you will train for it, and therefore you will reach that potential as you move and progress through your progress of aging, okay? As long as you train intelligently and you don't just go balls to the wall and, ignore your body's aches and pains, you'll be able to get better, no problem. Now, the thing is, if we're talking about athletics, and I suppose I'll make this video about athletics, but I'll make a separate video about things like brain health and heart health and stuff like that. Because as far as cognitive decline as you get older, that is ridiculous. You should be getting smarter and smarter as you get older. And if your cognitive abilities start to go downhill, that's probably the result of accumulation of inflammation from your diet, accumulation of deficiencies over time, which create more damage, you could say, over time. It's a cumulative damage is what I'm getting at here. And obviously bad cognitive habits. Like if you're overly stressed all the time, you're not getting enough sleep. The main reason why people who are younger are able to train stupid, they're able to just destroy their bodies over and over again, is number one, sure, you have a surge of testosterone in the early teens, but the main thing is that the wear and tear adds up over time. I could punch myself in the face over and over again lightly, and it won't hurt at first, but eventually it'll start to hurt, or I'll just get tired. The point is, damage takes time to show itself. And so the same thing goes for a lot of things. People eat junk food, in their teens. And at first, it doesn't appear to be diabetes because you don't see the symptoms until the damage stacks up. And then eventually you get diabetes because you've been eating crap for so long that you basically rotted your body from the inside. Let's put it simply. But 95% of society, most people in society, they blame all of this on age. They blame, my aches and pains, it's age. I can't recover from exercise because of my age. I would love to, I would love to join martial arts, but I'm too old. I would love to compete in jiu-jitsu, but I'm too old. I'd love to do powerlifting, but I'm just old. I can't handle the training. Especially something like jiu-jitsu, which happens to be rather intensely. There are people who start in their 50s and become world champions. People start in their 40s and become world champions. And the big thing that you'll see, so you'll hear from people who are black belts in jiu-jitsu, people who've been doing it for decades, that, you know, now that they're older, they've got to change the way they train because they're aching and they're hurting, and they're just too old to roll hard now. Well, the thing is, again, these people have been doing jiu-jitsu for decades. What happens when you do a sport for decades? Especially if you don't take rest days when you're sore or beat up. What happens? That damage accumulates over time and creates injuries. It doesn't matter what age you are. There are people in their teens who play football who suffer cognitive side effects from all the concussions and having shoulder injuries and all these things after just 4 years of high school or college football, leading up into the early 20s, and they have these problems. It has nothing to do with age. It has everything to do with the way that you're training and the damage that you stack up over time. It's not necessarily, I am 50 years old, therefore my body's fucked. Or I'm 50 years old, therefore my brain has, degraded. Or I'm 50 years old, therefore, I'm going to get a heart attack. It's not that at all. It's, I'm 50 years old. That means in those 50 years of my life, what habits have I done repeatedly over and over again throughout the course of that period of time that is creating my current physical health, mental health, and, organ health, my arterial health, for heart disease, the health of my pancreas for diabetes. Like, if you've been eating junk during those 50 years, you're going to have heart disease, you're going to have diabetes, you're probably going to experience some cognitive decline. If you've been training just dumb, okay, if you've just been killing your joints in a YOLO fashion, like you're not using any type of programming or logic or reasoning behind your training, because the honest truth is that there is a method of lifting to a 1 rep max, or almost maxing out every day, called Bulgarian method or Bulgarian light, that people say actually cures their injuries even as they get older, because they're squatting every single day. And while some people choose not to lift to an absolute max, they lift to a daily minimum or a daily max, these people actually notice greater mobility, and they actually recover faster from exercise after the 4th week, and their aches and pains go away after they adapt to it as well. So training stupid doesn't really mean, oh, I maxed out every single day or something like that. What it means is, if you start to have the signs of an injury, you should probably dial it back a little bit for a while. And the thing is, a lot of people just don't do that. But the reverse is also true. A lot of people, they train too conservatively. And I think that this is a really huge piece of this entire puzzle, is the placebo effect and the nocebo effect. So there's a lot of, the big thing here is people use this age-related decline idea as an excuse to not put their body through what it needs to go through in order to get better. So they're like, oh yeah, I would love to, I used to do strength and conditioning when I was younger, but now that I'm older, it's just too much for my body because I'm old. And the guy's like 40, and he's also a physical, not a physical therapist. He does like massage therapy type of stuff, but this has been something this guy's told us. I see this all the time. Yeah, now that I'm 45 years old, I just do some light jiu-jitsu, every couple days, and I take it easy, I'm too old and I have aches and pains. Meanwhile, the guy's got quite a lot of excess body fat because of his crappy diet and his lack of exercise. And so here's the thing. When you get older, you need more strength and conditioning. Okay? Or more so, you need proper strength and conditioning even more than the younger guys. Why do you need strength and conditioning even more as you get older. Because, look, if you do not train as you get older, what's going to happen? Whatever you're not training, you're going to get worse at. If you're not doing cardio every day, you're not going to get better at cardio. If you don't do strength and conditioning from week to week, guess what? You're not going to get stronger. You know? You have to progressively overload your body with whatever adaptation you want to create. And if you do that intelligently, you'll continuously get better over time. So actually, this is another reason why, so the science behind this is shaky. So in pretty much every single area of health and well-being and performance that we can look at, that they say declines with age. The science says it takes a large group of people. Generally, people in the average population, depending on what subject we're talking about, it takes people in the average population. For example, muscle mass declines with age. Even though there's people who start bodybuilding in their 60s and 70s and become so much bigger than they were when they were younger. But yeah, so muscle mass declines with age. Okay, in a lot of studies. Why do you think that is? Generally, it's because, so first of all, there is a hormonal thing, but I don't think that that is actually the main cause in these studies. The reason why muscle mass declines with age in the vast majority of people is because they're sedentary their entire lives. When you do not train a muscle, you lose the muscle. Duh! But yet, most of these studies are not done on people who are actually trained. Now, so in trained individuals, over time you're going to hit a peak as you train where you can't gain any more muscle. And so somebody who's already trained and they've reached a certain peak of muscle, which for me, I'm nowhere near my muscular peak because I don't train specifically to grow my muscles. Otherwise, I'd be a lot bigger than I am. I don't do bodybuilding training. I do mostly strength and conditioning for sport and a little bit of powerlifting, mostly powerlifting. But if you do hit your muscular peak, eventually you're going to lose muscle as a result of your hormones declining. Then, of course, if you jump on testosterone replacement therapy, well, then you can keep on going and going. You know what I mean? No matter how old you are. So that whole idea of losing bone mass declining with age. Let me tell you something. If you lift heavy weights, you will increase your bone density. So there's studies that claim that bone density does not increase past like humans' 20s. Okay, past the age of like 30, apparently bone mass starts to decrease. But again, if these studies are done on the average population, they're not doing weight-bearing exercises that has been clinically shown to increase bone mass or muscle mass. So obviously they're going to get a decline because they're sedentary, they're not putting their body through the stressors required for building that bone density and muscle density. So what do you think is going to happen over time? Their body's going to degress. The same way that if somebody was to go and do some exercise in the gym for about a year and then they stop, what happens? The progression goes downhill. So that's the main reason, in my opinion, I think it's very valid that most people start to lose muscle mass and bone mass over time. It's either too much bad habits over time or not enough good habits over time that creates that decline with age that we see. Now I will say without a shadow of a doubt that there's a cutoff limit. I think once someone hits their 70s, especially I'm going to say their 60s. Once someone hits their 60s, if they're not taking testosterone replacement therapy or hormone replacement, then chances are it's going to be like age will play a role in how hard it is to increase performance. It'll make it harder and more challenging. If you're in your 30s and you're thinking, oh, my age is limiting me, then you're a fool, and what's actually limiting you is your beliefs. If you're in your 40s and you think that, oh, you know, like I'm too old to like get into martial arts, I'm too old to like gain performance, or my aches and pains are caused by me being old, or I can't recover from exercise because I'm old. Like, you're not actually like old yet. You're not old in the way that your testosterone is going down to that point. Now, if your testosterone, now another thing is testosterone, even hormones, has a lot to do with your lifestyle and nutrition. I know I know men who are in their 40s and 50s who have conceived children with a female who's also in their 40s and 50s, but they live a very active lifestyle. And they eat healthier than the average person, but not healthy by my standards. Yet their hormone profiles are good enough to conceive a child. Now, how healthy that child is, well, they seem to be healthy looking at things, but the point here is it's context dependent. If you want to be weak, you want to be out of shape, if you want junk results, feel free to delude yourself into thinking that it's age. But if you want to be superhuman as you get older, and you want to stay that way as long as possible, you need to recognize that most of the science done on age, it does not take into account the fact, like a huge confounding variable, that most people in these studies, their cognitive function declines because of their bad habits. Their muscle declines because of a lack of muscular hypertrophy stimulation, a lack of weight-bearing exercises. Bone mass decreases because of a lack of weight-bearing exercises. Your reflexes might decrease because, well, shoot, when was the last time you played out on a soccer field? When was, recess back in high school? When was the last time you did anything that involved reflexes other than pick up your jug of beer and drink it? You will see a decline in performance that is directly related to a decline in participating in activities that simulate an increase in performance. And you'll also see a decline in performance in systems that is directly related to whatever habits are related to that system. Heart disease. Obviously, if you continue to eat inflammatory foods, whatever you think that is, because there's a lot of debate on that. But if you continue to eat inflammatory foods, you're going to eventually get diseases of inflammation. It has nothing to do with age. But if you don't eat those foods, you have a significantly low chance of developing diseases based on, depending on what system we're talking about here. So, of course, I went all over the place with this video. But the bottom line is, it's not your age that you need to worry about. It is the habits that you stack up over time. And I'll tell you, a 70-year-old who has paid attention to the things I talked about in this video, they've been training intelligently for most of their life. They've paid attention to recovery. They trained hard, but they trained smart over time. They've eaten foods that they have researched and found is definitely healthy. And they do the right things. When they reach 70, they're going to be completely different. In completely different shape, different health, and they're going to have better cognitive performance, better health, better performance, better mood, better energy, better mobility, you name it. They're going to be in superhuman form in their 70s, at least compared to all of the other 70-year-olds who said, oh no, I'm going to die anyway. I might as well smoke a pack of cigarettes a day, drink alcohol, and not exercise, and be hunched over all the time, and then I'm going to blame age. I'm going to blame age on my heart disease, blame age on my diabetes, blame age on my chronic neck and back pain, even though I'm constantly hunched over like this, have bad posture, and I don't take the time to lay on a foam roller and do self-massage techniques to roll, to relieve the stress that's bent up in my tense muscles. I don't stretch, don't hardly even go out for a walk. Yeah, obviously age is going to catch up to you, not because of age, but because of all those years of poor habits that stacked up over time. You want to be like Jack LaLanne, who died at the age of 97 years old when he was completing his 2-hour workout in his home gym, passed out from respiratory failure due to pneumonia because he chose to try to work off his infection rather than go to the hospital and get it treated. That is the type of 97-year-old I want to be. Okay? And if you look at that guy and all of the principles he followed, he is a great example of everything I mentioned. Even though I don't think his diet was the healthiest, but it obviously worked. So, yeah. I'm a big believer in building health and building strength of all systems, building strength of mind, building strength of all the systems of your body, rather than like letting self-defeating thoughts that you don't even know are true, like, oh, I'm just old. Don't let those stop you, because it's delusional. It's delusional. Anyway, let me know what you all think down below. Do you think I'm full of shit? I'd love to know. Thanks a lot. See y'all soon.